Wesley Pruden of the Washington Times says former Vice President and climate change activist Al Gore may need an extra blanket. In a piece entitled "The Killer Frost for Global Warming," Pruden writes that although winter has barely arrived, quote, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, reports 63 record snowfalls in the United States, 115 lowest ever temperatures for the month. Only 44 Octobers over the past 114 years have been cooler than this last one. He also points to the fact that many experts now concede the Earth has not warmed since 1995, adding, quote, even the United Nations says so. The director of the UN's panel on climate change concedes that nature has overwhelmed everything man can do. He also says Gore no longer warns of global warming, but decries climate change instead. Quote, on average, climate change covers every possibility.
Environmentalist Bjorn Lomborg, who does not dispute global warming but questions the value of many proposed remedies, is taking President-elect Obama to task. Lomborg writes in the Australian newspaper that Mr. Obama is getting some of his facts wrong. Last month, the president-elect said, quote, sea levels are rising, coastlines are shrinking, we've seen record drought, spreading famine, and storms that are growing stronger. That's the sentiment he reiterated late today. But Lomborg says, quote, actually, we've seen the sea level fall during the past 2 years. In that period, many coastlines have increased. Lomborg says studies also show an increase in global soil moisture and not drought. Quote, famine has declined rapidly in the past century. He then adds, quote, a policy of reducing CO2 emissions would have had zero consequence on Katrina, Hurricane Katrina, that is, devastating effect. Despite last year's United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change declaration that climate change was, quote, unequivocal, is already happening, and is caused by human activity, not all experts are convinced. More than 650 international scientists are disputing those claims in a newly updated U.S. Senate Minority Report. It adds about 250 scientists to the 400 who spoke out last year, and includes current and former UN Climate Panel members. One atmospheric scientist writes, quote, since I am no longer affiliated with any organization, nor receiving any funding, I can speak out quite frankly as a scientist. I remain skeptical. Another says, it is a blatant lie put forth in the media that makes it seem there is only a fringe of scientists who don't buy into anthropogenic, that is man-made, global warming. And for Nobel Prize winner Ivan Giver, global warming, quote, he says, has become a new religion.
The United Nations is conceding that its Forum on Climate Change will likely contribute to global warming. The UN Framework Convention on Climate Change began Monday in Poland. The French press agency reports the UN estimates the 11-day conference will pump more than 13,000 tons of carbon dioxide into the Earth's atmosphere. That estimate was based on an expected turnout of 8,000 people, but so far almost 11,000 people have registered to discuss ways to stop global warming at the forum. Polish authorities say they are hoping to take steps to offset emissions by resulting from the conference, but no decisions have been made yet. The British Parliament passed a massive piece of global warming legislation Wednesday. The Register newspaper reports the House of Commons spent 6 hours debating a bill to reduce carbon dioxide emissions by 80% over the next 4 decades. But this debate over the need for immediate action to deal with the rapidly developing dangers of global warming occurred as Londoners experienced their first October snowfall since 1922. A blanket of snow covered the Parliament as the bill passed on its third reading, 463 votes to 3. But the Register states that recent polling indicates 60% of the British public now doubts man's influence on global warming.